Sana. I'm so happy to be here. And I'm also so happy to see all the other members that are here. Karibuni Sana. We're going to learn about taxes for our businesses, our SMEs. And I'm very sure that you're going to get something for your own business. And you're going to get some learning and some insights that are going to really help your business. So I'm so excited for this invitation by DTBX and Infinity Pay, and I'm so happy also to welcome some of our customers. We were also able to share on our social media handles, and I know that some of you came in. So Karibuni Sana, it's a pleasure to have you here. So we can go right to the training. I've been given an hour. And the topics are the topic is quite huge. So let me dive in and let me share in a minute. You can ask a question on the chat. If you have a question, we're going to open it for questions, but if you have an urgent question as I move on the training, you can ask on the chat. And there are people, I have so many people around me who are going to even answer your question immediately. All right. So this is what is expected for today. I had shared with Gloria that this is a training that would require a minimum of 3 hours for me to be really able to explain well. So for today, we're going to share a few of the items here. And of course, we're going to tell you on how to also train on the rest. So I'll talk about understanding common Kenyan taxes for SMEs. Of course, these are taxes that you interact with them every single day. So I'll just highlight a few. I'll talk about bookkeeping for tax optimization. That is very key for you. Some tax deductions and credit for Kenyan SME. And also share eTIMS as an emerging trend. I think the eTIMS topic is quite hot, and I would want you to understand a few things about eTIMS. So I'll talk about that. For KRA audits, and KRA is very vigilant for audits, especially right now, is a huge topic, and this involves understanding how to navigate when they ask you for an audit process, the audit process, how to go through objection, how to do tax resolutions in case of a dispute, in case you're assessed, when you receive a tax demand, when you receive news that your bank account has been closed, that is agency notices, how to go about it. So it's a very huge topic, and I would wish if we can handle it as on its own, because it also requires a lot of training. So let's talk about taxes. And we know tax. Already I know that you know that tax is what the government uses. It's collected by, it's a government collection that is helping it meet its obligations. So taxation is what we provide in our businesses, so that the government can use on its daily expenditure, capital expenditure, development, current expenditure. And we always know, right now we almost a month or 2 months to the reading of the budget. And when the president says that he needs 3 trillion, sometimes we think that that money will be collected, then it is given to the government. But collection and expenditure happens at the same time. So they are doing collections on a monthly basis, and then Treasury is spending on a monthly basis. So sometimes when we hear that there are deficits because collection in that month are low and the expenditure was too high. So it is something that is happening currently according to the expenditure of the government. So these are some of the common taxes for SMEs. And I know that you know them, and your business has these obligations, but I'll mention some few things that you need to know when it comes to these taxes. So when I talk about income tax, this is income tax is levied on your business on their annual income. So when you have your business, whether it is a limited company or it is a sole proprietor or you're registered as an individual, you're just earning business, you're earning income out of a business, you're supposed to file for income tax. And you can file it as a limited company. That is where you do 30% on your profits. You can do it as a sole proprietor. As a sole proprietor, you do the graduated scale. You can do it as a partnership. You may have partners. So you're going to share those profits and you're going to pay taxes as partners. And some of you, you're not registered a business, you don't have a PIN, but you've registered a trade name, a business name. That business name is registered on your personal PIN. So you're supposed to declare business income on your personal PIN. So what would I want you to know more about income tax? That for you to be able to handle income tax, you need to do correct bookkeeping. Because income tax is where you present your sales and you present your purchases and your expenses. So most of our SMEs have a challenge when it comes to bookkeeping. You are not able to demonstrate the profits for the company. Even if you made a loss, you cannot be able to demonstrate because you don't have correct bookkeeping. So bookkeeping is having the correct accounting software, possibly QuickBooks. There are so many accounting software that are there. So at this point, as a business, you cannot say that you don't have an accounting software. So I encourage you about having an accounting software. And we have Infinity Pay, which Gloria will talk about it, and it can help you on bookkeeping. So bookkeeping is very key. Then when you have your bookkeeping, you have your recording properly. So if you pay for fuel, and we have the regulations with ITIMS, which I'll talk about, that all your purchases have to be ITIMS compliant. So when you're buying a purchase, when you're buying something for your business, must have the ITIMS invoices. When you're paying for fuel, when you buy something from a supermarket, anything that you're doing has to be ITIMS compliant. So bookkeeping comes in. So that is one. And then the other point is having the correct auditor to be able to file for you income tax. So the presentation of your audit report is very, very important. And having an auditor who understands tax. So sometimes they may do calculation that may appear to expose you, maybe an exposure for you. So when I'll be talking about tax audits, I'll talk about tax triggers. The exposure when it comes to how we do our calculations might bring an exposure for you. So having the correct auditor who can be able to handle that is very, very important. Let's talk about pay. Pay is a mandatory tax levied on all employees on a monthly basis for their salaries. And for pay right now, there are so many other regulations when it comes to our employees. We have NITA, we have housing levy, which has been reintroduced. We have NHIF, which also is going by the name SHIF, of course, with other regulations and other tax brackets. We have NSSF. So for your employees, you have pay, you have housing levy, NSSF, NHIF, and we have NITA. So you have to comply to all of them. So when it comes to NHIF and NSSF, how do we handle that for casuals? So first of all, for pay as you earn, you as a director, you're supposed to pay as you earn. So sometimes we miss out on that because we keep saying the business is not making profit. So for me as an entrepreneur, as a director, I've not been receiving a salary. Yet you've been using that business to feed your family, to pay your school fees. You might not have that salary that you're receiving on a monthly basis, like this is the money, no. But you're using the money out of the business to pay for your daily survival. So you have to assign a salary for you and pay as you earn. So when you have directors that are missing on salary, a salary, that is a trigger, and you're supposed to be paying that. The other portion is where we have casual wages and people who come to our employment and they are not registered, we not employed them. So let's have casual wages sheets that they are signed properly, proper signatories. So if you're paying them on a weekly basis, let's have the signatures. So when we talk about SME, pay as you earn, you have to monitor the director's salaries I've mentioned. The casual's wages has to be demonstrated very, very well. The other portion that I've seen, especially when it comes to audit, is directors' withdrawals. So we're also having a challenge with our SMEs. We run our businesses in our pockets as a briefcase business. So you're the one who is doing a lot of withdrawals, you're doing a lot of deposits. So the business, when you generate a bank statement, the bank statements, most of the money are going to your personal, even your M-Pesa number. So it is you who is doing those withdrawals. And of course, I know you do those withdrawals to pay for supplies, to pay for expenses. But that one is a very big audit trigger. And KRA can tap those withdrawals as salaries that you paid yourself. So they can charge pay as you earn. So this is an area that I've seen a lot of SME being charged because they cannot see a salary from director. They cannot see a director's account if you put money in the business as a capital investment. You don't have a director's account. And then you have so many withdrawals, they can term it as money you paid yourself. So those are some of the things that I would want you to really understand when it comes to paying. Capital gain tax, I mentioned this because some of us have properties that you're selling, even as a company, as an SME, so that this is a tax imposed on profit realized from the sale of an asset, like land, building, and securities. So there's a calculation that happens, and there are some exemptions. So if you're selling a property that is below 3 million, you are exempted. There are other exemptions, like you're transferring it from a spouse to another spouse. And even when you buy land as a company, you even have to demonstrate where you got money from. So some of you buy a property, buying land for your business, and you bought that land for 10 million or 50 million, yet your business has been in losses. You've been in losses for the past 5 years, and you did not acquire a loan. So those are triggers. So during an audit process, KRA will ask you, where did you buy this land from? Because you've introduced land as an asset in the third year or fourth year. Where did you get money from? Yet your business was a loss and you did not even acquire a loan. So those are some of the things that I say when the calculations is being done for income tax, because this is balance sheet presentation, let it be done by somebody who is able to understand tax, so that they can be able to describe the implications, and then you can be able to make a decision. Withholding tax, this is tax deducted at source. So if I come to you as a tax expert or an auditor and I'm doing your books, when you pay me like 50,000 or 100,000, you're supposed to deduct 5% of that money, and you're able to pay KRA on my behalf. So that is tax deducted as source. And this is so many, when I come as a non-resident, as a resident, there are so many things that you're supposed to do. Legal fees as a lawyer, some technical expertise that you're having. Sometimes some of you are using for publicity, how do we call them? The media personalities to market your goods. So by the time you're paying them, you have to do this withholding. So it is consultancies that you do. So it's very important for you to understand. Property taxes. So these are taxes levied on ownership of a property, for instance, land rates. So if you have a property, this is some of the rates that you're supposed to pay on a monthly basis. Indirect taxes, this is where VAT or value added tax comes in. And right now we have ITIMS, which has really borne a lot of issues, and I'm going to talk about ITIMS. So for VAT, we have three categories. We have standard rated, that is 16%. We have exempt, and we have zero rated, according to the business that you're doing. So if you're doing export and as an SME, you're zero rated, there are some advantages of your business. If you're doing some businesses, for instance, if you're in a school, it is exempted. If you're doing animal feeds and other businesses, they're exempted. You might also do a business that have some items that are exempted, others are zero rated, others are standard rated. So according to the nature of your business, for instance, a wholesale business who are selling foodstuffs. So there are foodstuffs like cooking oil, which are 16%. There's others like flour could be exempted, others could be zero rated. So the iTax portal has all those categories, all the three categories. So you have, when you're filing for VAT, you have to describe every sale at its category. When you are purchasing also, you have to put your purchases at every different category. When you're importing or exporting, you have to put in that category. The iTax portal has all those categories. So it is very, very important also to be handled by the right person for that. What I would mention about VAT is that VAT is one of the tax that has a lot of audit queries. So when your business starts making a lot of profits or a lot of turnovers, for instance, so for instance, you've been doing 1 million in a month, now you're able to do 5 million in a month. The more turnovers you have, the more visible you become. So it is very important for you to understand VAT, because this is mostly where a lot of audit issues come in. And for VAT also, when it comes to taxes and tax audits, it is one of the tax obligations that you can really get a lot of tax demands on. Now we are having ITIMS to come even enhance how we do VAT. So it is very important for you as an entrepreneur to understand VAT. And if you need a lot of, this is an area I would even require you to get personalized training on how to do VAT and how to handle ITIMS. I'll talk about ITIMS as we move on. So the other portion is excise duty. So if you're manufacturing excisable goods, this could be alcohol, could be tobacco, petroleum product. There are some products, even water, they stamp duty. So, and also excise duty is also extremely expensive and has a lot of audits. So if you're having a business, like you're selling alcohol or water, and your business has VAT, then it has excise duty. Then you really need the correct tax expert with you, because every time you're asking for stamp duty, you are undergoing an audit. So KRA will give you stamps. The stamps will give you stamps like 10,000 stamps. So when you go use those 10,000 stamps, when you're going back to ask for more stamps, you're going through an audit. They will ask you, we gave you 10,000 stamps. So let's see, according to your calculations, because you've been filing excise duty every month. So they will look at the portal and see how many stamps you have used. So they'll come and say, according to your filing, you've used 5,000 stamps. We gave you 10,000 stamps. So 5,000 stamps you have not used, and you're coming for more stamps. So why? Do you have these 5,000 stamps in your stocks? So they can even come for a physical count. So when you're selling accessible products, it is very important for you to be able to understand even how to use the stamps properly. You always be in an audit position. So you cannot get the stamps from KRA and not use, or you get the stamps and when you're now selling, you sell and you describe that you're not selling with stamps. So it cannot happen. So you get the stamps, you have to declare the stamps every single month on the system. Otherwise, you're going to get a lot of audits. And we have seen this. We have cases of companies that are doing liquor and beer, and we know them, who have gone through this kind of audits. Even companies that are doing water, they have huge tax demands because of the stamps. So that is a very critical position. So if you're going to sell juices, any product that has stamps, you have to get the correct tax advisor along with you to help you on that. So custom duty, this is duty imposed on goods imported in a country. And custom duty is also different for different products. So also when you're importing, you might be importing finished products. So for you, you're just selling it. You might import raw materials. So you're coming to put that raw material in your product and then get a finished product. So it's very important for you prior to even importation, understanding the custom duty, because custom duty will also come with other levies. There are other levies for imports of goods. So the VAT is there, custom duty is there. You may have even importation duties. There are so many duties for imports. So understanding it and also understanding how to also cost your product is also very important. Stamp duty, I have talked about it. Stamp duty, this is tax imposed on various documents and transactions, including property transfer. So when you're transferring, I was talking about the stamps, the excise stamps. So this one is stamp duty. So stamp duty is when you're transferring a property, there's stamp duty you're supposed to pay when you are the buyer. So the capital gain tax is paid by the seller. Stamp duty is paid by the buyer. And stamp duty at the moment, you're doing it through iTax. So when you do stamp duty through iTax, it is signals to KRA that this property is being transferred. So there's a sale that happens. So if the seller did not declare capital gain tax, then because of the stamp duty, because a transfer has to happen anyway, and the transfer document, the title has to change hands. So it is signals for capital gain tax. So capital gain tax and stamp duty is interconnected. So if you miss capital gain tax, when you're doing stamp duty, it will signal. So the seller will be audited and will be required to pay for capital gain tax. Turnover tax. Turnover tax is levied on gross sales of your turnover for a small business whose turnover does not exceed a threshold of 1 million. So turnover tax has been there for the longest, but we've not been really used it. But right now, because of the regulations and so many ITIMS issues, some companies are opting for turnover tax. Turnover tax, you're supposed to charge on 3% on your gross sales. So when you hit 1 million, you're supposed to pay. So some people ask me, what are some of the business as an SME I can do and not being asked for taxes? I can evade taxes at all. So your business, when your business hits your 1 million turnover per year, so this is a business that is doing about 100,000 per month. So if you break it down, you're selling, your sales is about 5,000 in a day. So 5,000 in a day is a business that is It's very small. It's a kibanda, it's mama mboga, it's someone who is selling a small hotel. They are making a sale of 5,000 in a day. So when you hit that 5,000 in a day, you are eligible to pay turnover tax. That is at 3% on your gross sales. And you're supposed to do it on a monthly basis. So when we have the KRA officers coming to our businesses, and I don't know if they have visited, last year KRA released about 1,400 people, revenue officers that are supposed to do surveillance. When they come to your organization or to your business, they are looking for this. They are looking to see, are you using e-Teams? Are you VAT registered? Do you have staff? Or do you have pay as you earn? And if you're really small, are you doing turnover tax? So they are also imposing turnover tax for, especially for business that are at the 1 million threshold and above. So how do we, so those are some of the taxes that are mentioned. I've mentioned a few things there. So let me talk about how to optimize, because of time. Let me talk about how to optimize your SME. Correct, keep accurate records. I've mentioned this. For audit purposes, the only thing that you can win an audit is your books. So how else have you been able to do your books? So an SMEs, our challenge, if we are not even able to do reconciliations. We don't do bank reconciliations, ledger reconciliations. How we run our business, the moment you know that I sell this much, I get this much, that is enough. The moment you're able to understand your profit margin, you don't care about bookkeeping yet. That is one of the areas that can really save you on taxes. So this is something, and it's also a huge topic that you can handle it on your own, on our own, how to keep the correct books. Claiming deductions. So there are so many business expenses and ensure they are properly documented. I'll talk about it in the next slide. Utilizing tax credits. So there are some tax credits also. I'll talk about them in the next slide. Track inventory. So if you are an SME, inventory is your business. That is where you have your cash flow. So some of you are not able to have stock management systems with you. So when we come to you and we are doing process audits, we do process audits while we track how you run your business, compliances. So if you're a manufacturing company, how do you order your raw materials? How do you manufacture? How do you sell? And stock keeping at every level. How do you stock keep at the raw materials? How do you stock keep? How do stocks move from the raw materials to the production area? And then from production to the finished product? How do you sell? So sometimes we look at the system, and because these are systems that are being used by accountants in the office, and sometimes some of them will see the gaps and use the systems against you. So there are some places where I'll find that because goods have to live with an invoice, a customer is created, a fictitious customer is created from the system, an invoice, a fictitious invoice is created, goods leave the organization, the whole process is used, but that customer does not pay. So you find customers that are hanging in the system, or that customer is also, the system, because they are using the system to do this, they come back in the system and they say that the customer paid. So they are not bank reconciliation. So that is a customer created. There are no rules. There are no rights for this. Customer is created, goods leave the organization. They come back and say the customer paid. So there is no even checks of how we do the bank reconciliation. At the end of the day, your stocks are just leaving the organization. You're just being told you're just working and there's no cash flows. So how we are able to track businesses processes, how we are able to track inventories, do bookkeeping, do bank reconciliations is very, very important. Understanding depreciations. So there are some assets, or the assets we have in the organization. So there are some that you can enhance depreciation and capital because you also get the wear and tear deductions, capital allowances out of those assets, and you can be able to reduce taxes on that. So considering VAT registration, depending on your SME turnover, so sometimes we do a lot of business, so you may find that you're having a lot of your purchases through VAT. And you pay a lot of VAT, but yet you, because you're not registered, and yet you're on the threshold, you keep not registering. Yet if you could have registered, you could even be saving some of the money. So having that checking on the VAT registration and the advantages that it would bring to your organization, it is very, very important. Utilizing tax incentives. So there are some incentives according to the nature of business that you're doing that you can enjoy. For instance, if you are doing an export business as an SME, the VAT on your purchases, you refunded that money. So understanding the nature of your business and the incentives, I'll talk about a few incentives. It is very important. Monitoring withholding taxes. Also, this is a huge area, and it's an area that has brought a lot of tax queries. So some of you are registered or you've been appointed as withholding agents. So it is very important to understand that appointment and how to navigate through it. Others, if you're not, and some of you are withholding agents, and yet you also withheld. So you're withholding and you're being withheld. So understanding how to do that calculation is very important. Others, there are some of you, you're not agent, but some people are withholding on your behalf. So how you do those sort of calculations is very important. So some of you, you receive those withholding certificate, and yet because you don't have purchases, you don't acknowledge the sales. So during a KRA audit, KRA will acknowledge the sales every single month. So you may find that that audit might be very expensive for you. So understanding how to do those sales is very, very important. Maintaining separate business and personal finances for SMEs. This is a huge area for you. Also, because we put together, we don't separate. So you may find some expenses, you're paying for house bills, you're paying for your shopping, home shopping out of the company. And I mentioned here, and I repeat for the people that came in, most of our bank statements as SMEs, we operate them in our pockets. We have the apps in our phones. So we send that money to our M-Pesa. During an audit process, KRA is turning that withdrawal as money that was paid to you as a director. So it is very important to do that separation, and even separation of whatever that you're paying. So if it is something that you're paying for business, why don't you pay direct to the person that you're paying that money? And you can even write a check. So you can even have director's account. So in that area, separation is very, very key. And when we also talk about separation and bookkeeping, some of us, we go and fuel company vehicles, we fuel our personal vehicles, and we bring that fuel to the company as an expenditure. First of all, an M-Pesa receipt is proof of payment, is not a source document. So you have to get a receipt from the petrol station with ITIMS and ITIMS compliant receipt from the fuel station so that you can be able to justify your payment. Otherwise, some of you, when I look at your books, you just bring in printing M-Pesa receipts. That is just a proof of payment. So that was just a mention. Tax, what are some of the tax deductions? I don't know what is our time, okay. Some of our tax deductions, business expenses. So any expense that is for the furtherance of the business is allowed. So this is where bookkeeping is important. So you have to demonstrate rent, utilities, supplies, anything that you spend for that business, as long as it is documented very well. There's a source document. And this is why you win tax cases. And this, I don't know if we're having Asians in the webinar. So that one is they are really nice when it comes to how they do bookkeeping. So when you go to the organization, you find the QuickBooks or the software they are using is very correct. You even have the manual recording. So they will even have someone who's doing manual recording of ledgers, of bank reconciliation, even the big books for bank reconciliations, they have them. And they also do those reconciliation in the system. Because right now, during an audit process, KRA will request for general ledgers, will request for purchases and sales ledger. So you cannot say that I keep my documents manually. So you have to get to a point where you're using softwares to maintain your books and do reconciliations. So some of you, when it comes to sales, if I ask you for a sales ledger today, you're giving me a sales ledger that even has details of 2021. So per year, you're not able to close your ledger. So close your ledgers, do ledger reconciliation. If I ask you for a debtor's position, you give me a debtor's position which is correct. A payables, a receivable which is correct, the creditors which is correct. Those reconciliations are very, very important. So I was talking about the expenses, have the source document. So when it comes to how we do the bookkeeping, if you paid for fuel, for instance, have the fuel receipt with you. You can also have the, if you paid via M-Pesa, you can have the M-Pesa receipt. If you paid via check, you can have the check photocopy on that. You can have a payment voucher. So you can have a payment. If someone came to your organization to receive that check, have the payment voucher, signed payment voucher, this is what we are paying for, then have the copy of that check or copy of that payment model that you used, then have that invoice or have that receipt. If it was goods that you had paid for, supplies, have an LPO, have a delivery note, have a good received note. So when those goods came to your organization, there's a good received note that you're supposed to have, because you're supposed to also certify that you received the correct goods. If there were returns that happened, if there was a credit note that was raised, have it there. So proper documentation is very, very important. So some of you may even have a lot of credits, a lot of credit notes, even to a lot of returns. There are some items that came to your organization and there were returns, but you cannot demonstrate. So demonstration of the credit notes, even how you came to the system to impose those credit notes, is very, very key. So salaries and wages. How do you have a correct payroll with you? And wages and bonuses and everything. What are the benefits for your employees? Do they have car benefits, housing benefits? Is it demonstrated very, very well? And correct taxes done. And some of our SMEs, we have salaries expense but we don't have pay as you earn. Pay as you earn, you don't pay as you earn, but yet you have staff within the organization. So it is very important for you to have a file for your staff. When they come in, have staff files, their passport, their JD, the contract, what they are supposed to be doing, their salary. Then you have the payroll done on a monthly basis, plus the benefits and everything. And if you have employees that don't have the threshold, they are not on the threshold of 24,000 per month, and yet they are employed, they are permanent employees, you can also include them when you're doing your pay as you earn. The reason is you're demonstrating to KRA that I have salary expense, that I have staff. Some of you, you have like 5 staff that are on the threshold 24,000 and above. You have others, 5 of them that you're paying 20,000. That's 100,000 per month. If you don't put them on the payroll, and you don't put a file pay for them, filing is just put in their names and the amount. That one, at the end of the year, that 100,000 that is cumulatively is 1.2 million. You put it as a salary expense, and KRA is going to raise an alarm saying your salary expense is 2 million, yet we can see 3.2 million. What is happening? And you start demonstrating, telling them there are these staff that they are not on the threshold. But if you have all of them there, it acts to show that you have a bigger salary expense, and you can demonstrate it there. Professional fees. So this is me when I come to you, consultants, lawyers, showing them having the correct expense, doing the withholding for them. Very, very important. Rent and leases. I've talked about rent, and some of you don't receive that rent receipt from your landlord, so you're just paying them. And commercial property, they're supposed to give you 16%. So commercial spaces are vatable. So are they giving you an ETIMS invoice for the rent? Very, very important. And when you're doing the audited report, the accountant or the auditor is supposed to give the details of your landlord. So do you have those details? Depreciation and amortization, I've talked about depreciation. Interest expense, are you paying a loan? Business loan. So that business loan is an allowable deduction. We are talking about deductions. So what do? Get a loan statement from your bank. That loan statement, get the interest expense is an allowable deduction. Bad debts, and this is also very important for SMEs. There are so many sales that we do, and at the end of the year, you have tried to recover and without success. So if you're able to demonstrate that you sold and you've tried to recover, mostly they will talk about 3 years, but if you're able to demonstrate, demonstration is you've sent emails, you've sent possibly auctioneer letters, you have legal letters or lawyers that are following up for this payment. If you demonstrate, you can be able to recognize bad debts as an allowable expense. And this is one of the areas that you can really also save on taxes. So when I come to your organization, some of you are finding that you have bad debts and credit sales. They are debtors. You have a lot of debtors, like 50 million, 60 million, and those debtors are possibly for even year 2020, 2021. So I'll help you possibly to just call these people. If they cannot pay, we can recognize those bad debts and they can save a lot of taxes for you. Advertising and marketing expense. Of course, Some advertising and marketing expenses are also eligible for 5% withholding. So make sure that if you're demonstrating that they are marketing expense, you also did the 5%. So travel and transportation expenses. So when you're traveling, also get the correct documentation. If it was through air, you have the air ticket. If it was the local travel, the buses that we use, get those receipts. So I said the M-Pesa receipt is not, it's just a proof of payment. So get the correct receipts from the transportation company. Training and educational expense. If you're training your staff through having coaches or having trainers, get those receipts, and also is an allowable expense. Utility and communication expense. So telephone expenses, if you're giving them airtime on a monthly basis, get those airtime receipts, very important. Inventory cost. So cost of goods sold. So inventory association with the purchasing of items. So I've talked about purchases, whether it is raw materials or finished products, and I've demonstrated the documents that are eligible. Charitable contribution. So if you do a donation to a charitable organization, you've done a CSR to a children's home, the items that you bought, you can be able to also demonstrate as an allowable expense. Employee benefits or pensions, pension schemes. So if you get a retirement pension for your staff, is also an allowable expense. Some investment deduction allowances. So for SME, and this is one of the areas that I see big corporations are really able to get a lot of tax remedies and tax incentives when it comes to investments. So when you build an industrial building, when you do an investment, whether machinery or other items like the chart or the table that I've shown you, there is a lot of tax incentives and allowances that you can receive. Of course, this one requires you to have the correct tax advisor with you. So for us, we are really able to help you, especially when you're doing some of these investments. And KRA is able to audit. They are able to audit some of these buildings. So we prepare the file very, very well, and you're able to get these allowable deductions. And you can sometimes you can even not pay taxes for 3 or 4 years because of this investment. So if you're doing such investment, I would encourage you can talk to us and we can help you. Training levy fund, I've talked about training. And even if you define a fund where you can contribute towards that fund, you can also get some remedies on that. Export promotion zones. So if you as an SME, you go to an export promotion zone, you take your operations within the designated EPZ zones, there are some incentives for you. So you may find, for instance, VAT, you've been exempted. For corporation tax, you may find that instead of the 30%, you go to 25%, depending on the zone that you're going in. So you might consider for you to also go to that zone, there are some requirements that you're supposed to fill in. So it's not everybody. So there are some, and there's a process for you to follow also for you to be physically in the EPZ zone. So according to the nature of business that you're doing, you can also be able to get those incentives. Manufacturing underbound scheme. So this is also was supposed to help, especially for organizations that are doing manufacturing. So when you are engaged in a manufacturing activities under the manufacturing underbound scheme, you can talk to organizations like CAM, Kenya Association of Manufacturers. They can really be able to guide on this. You can benefit if you sectored under this. So there are also special economic zones, the same way they operate, the same way like EPZs, and understanding them and being able to position your business inside there. So I also find that when your business is under some of these zones, the special economic zones, the EPZ, the green energy incentives, those incentives, if you under export, there is also something they call green belt. If you under those segmentation, you may find that not just paying taxes, but there's regulation when it comes to audits. You may find that some of these companies that are within those zones, there's not so many tax audits because most of those zones are created to promote business, to promote SMEs doing business or companies within the zones to do business. So that is something that you'd want to consider, and you can also talk to us. So research and development. So it's already 10. Give me 5 minutes so that we can ask questions. Research and development tax credit. So I've seen this as mostly for organizations that are doing especially exploration of oil, minerals mostly. So if you're having this expense, you can be able also to have it as an allowable expense in the organization. Green energy tax incentives. So there's so much issues on climate change. So there's also an incentive on the green energy. So if you're also in that area, we can be able to help you and be able to get a bit of incentives on that. So with that, I would want to talk about e-teams as an emerging issue. I know some of you really wanted to hear about e-teams. So for 5 minutes, I'll talk about e-teams. And this is a discussion that we can discuss more. So I created this because there are so many KRA officers that are coming to your organization. So how do you engage them? So some of you, when they come to your organization, I hope you're not closing down. So are able to talk to them properly when you're sober, when you come, and designating a contact person to handle them. Sometimes they will ask you for information that in prompt. If you don't understand some of the questions they're asking, you can tell them that I don't have this information, and they can tell you, provide us with this documentation on a later date. Is very important. But what are they looking for? They are looking for if your business is registered for all tax obligations, could be corporation tax, especially mostly they are looking for e-teams. Is your business e-teams compliant? And if you're not, to onboard you. So they might not even raise any tax arrears, but they're going to onboard you. They will onboard you for e-team, onboard you for pay if you have staff, for VAT if you are at the threshold. And after onboarding you, they might come to visit you at a later date. So they'll give you a period of time and then come and check if you, after onboarding, if you're following the rules. They're also interested on rental property. So they are coming to see our residential property. Are we doing property? And by the way, I didn't talk about monthly residential property tax. So that was reduced to 7.5%. So also they are looking for that. So let me talk about e-teams. So e-teams was introduced about a year or 2 years when we got to teams, and there's a difference between teams and e-teams. So, and e-teams was introduced because of the ETR having so many issues. Some of the issues was missing traders, having invalid ETR invoices. So some of us had so many issues. And if you remember, there was a time KRA tried to match the invoices. The rule is if there's a seller, then there's a buyer. If I buy from you goods worth 500,000, for me, I'm a buyer, but for you is a sale. So in our different portals, you're supposed to declare the same sale, 500,000, the same amount, the same invoice number, the same date. In mine, as a buyer, I'm supposed to describe the same. So when those invoices were matched, only 20% were able to match. And then there were so many irregulations, missing traders. Like you could have, I could even buy 500, but when I'm coming on my site, I'll describe 2 million. And there was no system of checking who is doing the correct thing. So we tried to do inconsistencies and the VA and the system. And the resultant of solving that issue was the introduction of electronic tax invoice management system. So TIMS was introduced. Later, there was introduction of eTIMS. The difference between eTIMS and TIMS is that eTIMS is able to monitor your stocks. So TIMS and ETR was operating the same way, not sending data to KRA on real-time basis. TIMS was able, so in a day, if I do sales worth 500,000, I'm supposed to send that information to KRA or to iTax portal or to KRA on real-time basis, and they can see, they can monitor your sales every single day. But now with eTIMS, you're supposed to describe, if I sold to a customer goods worth 50,000, with the TIMS, it was just a sale. But with the eTIMS, I have to describe, I have to show them my stocks and describe what I sold worth 50,000. So if I'm selling clothes, I have to describe I sold 3 skirts, 2 shirts, and what worth 50,000. So through eTIMS, they can be able to monitor your stocks. And that is where one of the biggest issues, especially with the SMEs, I would want you to really understand that KRA is also interested on how you're doing your stocks. So some of you purchase, you really purchase very well. But when you come to sell, you don't sell on eTIMS. So when it comes to you doing your VAT, you pay VAT very minimum, or you're always on a credit position because you're able to have your purchases correctly. But when you're selling, you're not selling on eTIMS. What is the resultant of having eTIMS? Is that at the end of the year, KRA will do a stock audit on your stocks. So they will tell you, when we check the system, you've been buying goods worth, for instance, let me just pick one item. If you're in a hardware, your biggest item is cement. So they will consolidate a full year or 3 months or 6 months and tell you a full year, according to eTIMS, you bought cement worth 1,000 bags. But out of your sales, we can only see that you sold 500 bags. So where is the deficit of the 500 bags? It's either on your stocks, so they're going to check your closing stock, or you sold and you did not declare. Can we even come and do a physical count? They can even come, that is surveillance. They will even come to do a physical count on your stocks. So that is where the challenge is. And I encourage you as an SME, if you're using eTIMS, it is very important to understand that portion. And if you're doing TIMS, I foresee that TIMS will start not working. KRA is going to release a circular before the end of the year to tell us to all migrate to eTIMS. So how do you use eTIMS? After that, that is on ourselves. Then KRA brought in a regulation that all our purchases have to be ITIMS compliant. So our purchases and our expenditure, for you to claim them for corporation tax, have to be ITIMS compliant. So if you're buying a supplies, has to be ITIMS compliant. If you're doing expenses for rent, for anything that is the issue that we talked about, fuel, office expenditure, anything, unless it is salaries or those emoluments that you're paying, could be allowances and the salaries. And that salary is being monitored by pay as you earn. So anything else has to be ITIMS compliant. And some of you said, some of these purchases that you are purchasing from people that are not on VAT, so they are not ITIMS compliant. Then KRA brought in that you can register for ITIMS when you're not VAT registered. So right now we have ITIMS for non-VAT. We have ITIMS Lite. So I want to talk about the types. We have ITIMS Lite that a mamamboga there can be able to use on their phone. They don't have internet. It is a USSD code and they can use it. So for your business, to protect your business, so that when it comes now to corporation tax, you'll be able to demonstrate corporation tax correctly, you have to have all your purchases to be ITIMS compliant. So ITIMS Lite is mobile-based. It is USSD, *222# hash, very simple. Within a minute, you can be able to generate an ITIMS invoice. ITIMS Lite, you can use it on eCitizen, you can use it on the website, and you can generate an ITIMS invoice. ITIMS portal, you can go to KRA portal, and you can, out of the portal, you can go to ITIMS portal, and you can generate an ITIMS invoice out of it. So all of these measures, you don't have to register for VAT for you to get an ITIMS invoice. Then we have ITIMS client. It is two ways. You can buy the ITIMS machine, the machines that we buy, or you can download it on your laptop. So you can buy the machine or download it for free on your desktop or on your tablet. So ITIMS client. Then we have the online. So some of you have the ERPs systems, you have QuickBooks and other systems that you're using. So this one, you can integrate the ITIMS on your ERP system. So you can integrate. So because how the ITIMS is operating, it is operating as a point of sale. So you have to input all your stocks and sell. When you're selling to a customer, identify what you're selling to them, like the way we do QuickBooks and other softwares. So with it, so you can incorporate it because it will be double work. You can incorporate it in the ERP system and be able to use it. So we also have the virtual sales control unit. The difference is one is online, the other one is offline, and integration is happening. And for integration, there are companies that KRA has stated that you're supposed to use so that they can help you with the integration of your system with ITIMS. The other ITIMS that I've talked about, portal, Lite, if you're not doing so many transactions, for instance, you're doing business and the company that you're doing business for, or you're supplying a company and they tell you, we need an ITIMS invoice. You can't supply to us until you give us an ITIMS invoice. That one you can generate just through ITIMS Lite or the portal or the eCitizen. You can just generate that ITIMS on the spot and you can be able to give them. Now the catch is, and this is where SMEs comes in, especially for you that doesn't do VAT. You not have to file for that ITIMS, but that data is on the iTax portal, is on the KRA server on a monthly basis. So by the end of the year, their KRA server says that your company has done sales worth 3 million, 5 million, 10 million. So you can no longer do a nil return. You have to now demonstrate business income and taxes. So some of you who are just doing business because somebody asked you for an ETIMS invoice and you just create it on the phone and send them. Now that is an alert. At the end of the year, you have to file for business income. And when you're filing for business income, now you have to have because you have to show your expenses. Now you also have to have your books correct for that. So, and the ETIMS deadline lapse, that was 31st March. So what does it mean to your business? You have to do adhere to ETIMS protocol, adhere to the protocol. There's also the auto-population of the data. Let me just show you how you're supposed to auto-populate. And also what I would mention is that now your business is now visible because you're doing those ETIMS invoices. You have to have the correct tax advisor with you. The automation of VAT registration, the visibility of your business is now there. Corporation tax issues now comes in. A lot of audits, I foresee that next year, there's a lot of audit issues that will raise from ETIMS. So it is very important for your business now to be very structured and very, very well. So this is how an ETIMS invoice looks like. It has the buyer's PIN, which has to be stated there. It has the control unit serial number, and you have to have them. If you're doing, if you're doing the machine, if you bought the machine, this is how it looks like. It has the QR code, which you can scan. When you scan, it gives you the details via everything. It gives you everything. So if you're doing it on the portal or on the downloaded version, this is how it looks like. Of course, it still has the QR code. It has the buyer's PIN and all the other details. So when you're buying, and this is something that I would also want you to note, when you're getting these invoices on a monthly basis, because of the auto-population nature, make sure before you pay that person or before you pay your supplier, do a checker. So come to the iTax portal. So some of you have to now employ the correct accountant for you to handle ETIMS. So the iTax portal has the control unit checker, you can see there, the invoice number checker. Check, because if you don't get a valid ETIMS invoice, the auto-population will disturb you. So counter check early before you do payment. And some organization, everything has to be counter-checked. So counter-check that it is very important and have the correct details. And of course, have your buyer's PIN there. Make sure that they indicate the buyer's PIN so that the auto-population will be very easy. So how do you auto-populate and how do you pre-file? It is pre-filed for you. So you go to a return, you select pay as you earn, you select VAT, you can see the VAT there. Download the auto-population, my goodness. Download the auto-populated VAT return there. You save it on your desktop, that's how you save it. This is how the data looks like. So the data has sales and purchases. So for your sales, you generate the Z report, you counter check what the system has provided. Counter check all your sales from your Z report, the ETIMS Z report. If it is okay, that's okay. You come to your purchases, you have your purchases records with you. Counter check each one of them. So if you have purchases that are not there, the system has allowed you to input. Last month, we had a challenge because the system has refused. And I always say, when KRA gives something like that, it means that in the near future, we will not be able to incorporate those purchases. So make sure that you enhance the system, that it gives you the correct data the minute you auto-populate it. So counter-check the purchases. And if their purchases are correct, if their purchases that are not there, incorporate the purchases. And if you notice some suppliers, they are not there, you can even call them and tell them, I can't see my invoice there. What is the issue? So that you solve those issues, because in the foreseeable future, KRA is going to lock all those. So the data that you're going to be auto-populating, you'll not be able to adjust it. So after that, you import the data back to the system. After you do that, you can now look at the payment and validate. So you validate the data and you say, okay. So I guess I'll stop at that particular point, possibly to hear the questions.
Thank you so much, Regina. I think I'll just go straight to the questions. Marcin Korote asked on the chat, how does she apply for VAT? How do I apply for VAT as a business person? Would you like me to go through all of them and then you'll answer them? Okay, sure.
Yes.
There's one who asked, that's Valentine. Can I get guidelines on water purification business? Because I have one. I think she's also asking the same questions on VAT as well. This one is directed to me. We'll answer that in a bit. The other question would be, the other question is about SHIF. Are employees required to register afresh? Stanley Sadera also asked about the calculation for capital gains. Jacinta Nekesa. Good morning. I work in a private school whose two sources of income is the pure school fees collected and then for salaries. It receives a grant from a sponsor. What are some of the taxes that can be implied in such a case? Apart from the normal bookkeeping, what are some of the tax requirements that we are supposed to be sensitized on? That's from Jacinta. Julian Kamau also asks, for a sole proprietorship consultancy, which are startups, the fuel will be to the personal car of the proprietor. Is this deductible against consultancy income for the year? I think you can handle those as I get through the rest.
Yeah. Thank you, Gloria. I'm also able to see the chat, so I can also see a few. For VAT, for you to be registered for VAT, you have to be at the threshold of 5 million and above and operating a vatable business. And there is an application that you're supposed to do. There are documents. They'll ask you for CL12, sometimes tax compliance. So there are a few documents. It's very easy. You can even apply yourself through the portal, or you can even talk to us and we can help you. Then also, eTeams is also helping on VAT registration. The moment they just see that you are at the threshold, they can even automatically give you the VAT obligation. SHIF, the match that I know is that we're not going to register afresh. It's going to pick from what we've been doing in HIF. I had, if I'm not wrong, I had, let me check. I had a point where I wanted to talk about it. I guess we can talk about it the other time. The only difference is on the percentage, the 2.75%, and it is advantageous for people who have less amount of salary, but expensive for people who are earning more. So as SHIF, as they tell us, is that it's going to cover for more hospital bills and possibly advantageous now for us. So capital gain tax, So capital gain tax is 15% on the proceeds. So how it's calculated is you get your land, for instance, your land is 10 million. That's you bought that land like 5 years ago at 10 million, and then you're selling it today at 15 million. So the proceeds is 15 minus 10, 5 million, and then you charge 15%. Then you can also incorporate costs like legal fees, agency fees, surveillance fees to it to just minimize the CGT. The only catch is when you want to demonstrate the cost of land or cost of that property, you have to have documentation. So documentation is a sales agreement. Sometimes KRA will ask you for land valuation from a registered land valuer, a government valuer. They will ask you for a bank statement to show the money, the correct money that you received. Sometimes even when KRA really want to really bother you, they will even ask you to demonstrate where you got the money from to pay that property. So there's a lot that happens, especially when you buy a property for the company. There's always more, not just CGT, there's always more even to audit your book to see, especially if you just buy a property, 50 million, 100 million. I've handled clients who, we have, KRA will take even an audit process to see how you got that money, especially if you don't have a loan. You have to demonstrate that portion, but that's how it happens. Proceeds is on the profit that you receive from that land. If you build a wall, fencing, if you put water, you can have those expenses as a deductible allowances. For grants, this is a school. So we have also onboarded schools for e-teams. So also business, even a school, you can also onboard e-teams. And for a school, the learning institution, they're exempted from VAT. So it's for you just for making your business e-teams compliant. So if you receive, and for a school, one of the expenditure for the school is pay as you earn, the salaries. So do the pay as you earn correctly. Very, very well. It is very, very important. So even if you're having teachers or non-teaching staff, when you're paying them 15,000, 20,000, 22,000, incorporate all of them in the pay as you earn report return. It will just be zero, but it will be very advantageous. For a grant, if you receive a grant, that grant is not eligible for taxes, but you have to demonstrate. For instance, when you receive that grant, if you buy a property out of it, or you build a school out of it, it is very important to just show on your books that on your balance sheet, because it's also going to affect your balance sheet. For instance, if it was coming to build something, so it is important. For grants also, if the people give you the grants wants a demonstration of how you're running the business or how you're running the school, so bookkeeping also comes in hand. For a personal car, especially for people who are doing consultancy and you're using your personal car to go and look for work, you can use fuel, but you have to demonstrate. KRA will take you through to demonstrate the percentage of your personal use of the car and the business use. So there's always that calculation that you're supposed to demonstrate how you're using the car. So, and sometimes you may find you're using, for instance, for directors who own cars and they are fueled by the company, and you use that car from work to the office, you park it there. Then during the weekend, you're going to weddings and church and everything. Sometimes during an audit, they can even disallow those fuel expenditure after seeing that the car is being used for personal use more than even for office use. So there's always that portion that you have to be aware of. Possibly I can check for more questions.
I think as you do that, let me take the question from Linda Mukaya. Hi, Gloria. Kindly, if you can shed some light on how DTB Bank is supporting SMEs in terms of loans and savings. So I think throughout the session, you've had Dr. Regina mentioning that how you're able to track your records as a business person is very important, and that you have to shift from manual recording to actually automating your business so that you can just generate reports. So I'll hand over to my colleague Charmaine to take you through what exactly DTB has done to support you as a business person. Charmaine?
Yes, so I'll take you through what DTB does. Thank you, Dr. Regina, for the comprehensive packed training on eating. I know the question would be, where do I start with all this information? What is my starting point? And I would tell you, we've talked about record keeping, bookkeeping, accounting, stock management, sales and purchases. And so your starting point would be to get a good platform that enables you consolidate all this. So I would like to introduce Infinity Pay. It is an app powered by Diamond Trust Bank. We went to the ground, we talked to SMEs in the import and resale sector, we talked to the agricultural sector. I know, Victor, you're there. We talked to the liquor industry, baking industry, Tumba sector, and this is what we got. People need an easy to use bookkeeping solution. They need something that isn't their payments. They need something that helps them with their stock management. And so that is why we built Infinity Pay. It is an easy to use app. It is very simple. You can receive a wide variety of payments. Your onboarding is digital. You can do stock management online. And the thing about Infinity Pay, which I will tell you guys, if you download and you try, you receive all your money. So when a customer pays you, I know some of you use all these other payment options, and when a customer pays you, for example, they pay you 1,000 bob, 50 bob is in a Katwa. So with Infinity Pay, if a customer pays you 1,000 bob, you save 1,000 bob. That means, imagine if for every transaction you can save 50 that was being taken to fees, in 10 transactions you'll be saving yourself 500. So that means you have 500 that you didn't have. That is what Infinity Pay does for you. It is a business tool that has all these features. You can pay your suppliers, you can pay for your expenses. And I know Dr. Regina has said that KRA charges a lot on the expenses because you can term it. It can be termed as money that you paid yourself. Now with Infinity Pay, you have all these records. You have access to financial reports. You can do income versus expenses report. You have your end of year financial book. And over and above this, what Infinity Pay does for you, it guarantees you loan. So we have transactional based financing. Based off of your transaction, you have the ability to get a loan. So that is why I emphasize, we've shared the links to Infinity Pay, to download Infinity Pay. It is available on Google Play Store. It is available on the App Store. It is available on Huawei Play Store. You can get all these things in one tool. It helps, it consolidates all these things. Get your expenses right with Infinity Pay. That is what I can say for now. Feel free to ask us any questions. We're available on social media to answer all your questions.
Thank you so much, Charmaine. I think I'll hand it over back to Regina. You're saying I think there are other questions on the chat. So let me just go to the chat. So there's somebody who asked, what are SMEs who are exempted from remitting TOT? Before I finish reading all the questions in the chat, as Charmaine said, the idea for Infinity Pay is to actually grow with you as a business person. And in partnership with Regina and team, we want to see that your businesses are, you make most of Infinity Pay to get tax optimization, and that ultimately begins with your bookkeeping and record keeping. So when you begin, you have to begin from somewhere. So that is how DTB has come in to fill that gap. So Regina, the first question was, what are SMEs who are exempted from remitting TOT expected to do? And then kindly share more on eTeam's registration on specifically SACCOs. and then somebody's asking their business has been operating without pay, can they apply for it now or will they get penalized? Am you a person who has to venture on tax consulting on a part-time basis? This is really Washira. Really, Washira, I think you can reach out to Daktari on a personal level, and probably she'll be able to advise on that. So Regina, back to you.
All right, thank you so much, Gloria, for that. First of all, Infinity Pay, when we came for a demo for Infinity Pay, it was such a great platform. And I guess next time when we are handling this, we can give it a bit of more time. Especially, I love the part that is able to do record keeping, and also the part that it can track your transactions and you can get a loan. I guess you can mention that, Gloria, you can get a loan because of your transactions without security.
Yes. Actually, that was the idea. So what we do with Infinity is transactional based financing. So basically based on your activity on the application, because now as a bank, we would have all your records. I know most people when they go to banks and ask for loans, most of the time you usually ask, can I bring my M-Pesa statement? Can I bring my statement from another bank? So with Infinity Pay, that is what we were trying to solve for. So as DTB, we would have records of all your transactions. We would see how your business is doing, basically your business health, from the reports that you're able to get from the application, and then we'll be able to extend to you a finance based on your activity on the application and what you've been doing. So yes, you're able to access a loan, and yes, I would encourage everyone to download and just start and have a look at it.
Okay. So, all right, I guess, Gloria, I'll just answer the 3 questions and then we can call it a day, if that's okay. So for TOT, if your organization, I said for turnover tax, it's optional. If the lowest is 1 million and you're supposed to do 3% on your gross sales per month. But when you get to the threshold of 5 million, we can opt for VAT and corporation tax. So turnover tax is a final tax. So when you do turnover tax, you don't do corporation tax. You don't file for corporation tax. But also it is allowing organizations who are at 1 million to a turnover of 25 million per year. So if you can opt, you can even opt to just go to VAT and do corporation tax. So you can do the calculation and see how best your organization can fit in either turnover or VAT with corporation tax. For SME, for eating, for SACCOs, so we say that even if you're offering services that are exempted, you can still be ETIMS registered. So you can still register for ETIMS, and according to the services that you're having, you can also have them there. So for pay as you earn, for registration of pay as you earn, it is very simple. You just go to the portal and register for pay as you earn. It is simple, and they're going to, they'll ask you for some details possibly, and you can register, you're going to be registered for that month, that very month. So you pick it from there and you continue. And I always say it is very important for you, for all the taxes that I've talked about, it is very important for you to be even 10% compliant. So compliance, you can be 10% compliant than being non-compliant at all. So even if you've been having employees and you've never incorporated, or even you as a director, I say director is still an employee of the company. So you can register right away and start from that point going forward. So my name is Regina Kinghori. I'm a tax and expert. I run an audit firm, RWK and Associates, and we handle audit, tax, and advisory. And I do a lot of tax representation to clients. to carry on different tax issues to the level of tribunal ADR. So you can talk to us. My co-host had given on the chat our number and the consult. You can book for us a consultation free of charge. We're going to do, if you have an issue, possibly you want to talk to us, you can go there on the calendar and book a free consultation, and we can pick the conversation from there. So thank you so much, Gloria. Thank you so much, DTBX, Infinity Pay. And I would love you to just check them out. It's a really nice application, and it even gives you the reports, balance sheet plus the profit and loss account. It is a very useful platform. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Regina. And I agree with you so much. This session, 1 hour does not do justice to what you're teaching us. So I think in future we'll plan to do better. We can even host some of the attendees here at DTB and take you through e-teams, because I've seen that is a very hot topic that everyone would like to know about. So we'll work on doing something together and possibly future sessions as well. Yes, Nyambura, as I was saying, yes, we should have another session. Charmaine, I think, has something good to tell everyone about Infinity Pay. So Charmaine?
As we conclude, please, I want to give you guys merchandise. So the first 3 people to download and activate their Infinity Pay wallet, I have goodies for you. We have shared the links for Infinity Pay on the chat. The first 3 people to download Infinity Pay and activate their wallet, I have something for you.
You get to meet all the whole Infinity team in person as well. So thank you so much, Regina, for the insightful session. Everyone else on the chat, will keep the chat on so that you can be able to access the various links. I know we've shared a lot of links. We've shared the link for our community, our SME community that is on WhatsApp. If you'd like to join us, Andrew is posting the link on the chat again. We will share the training material and the recorded session after this. We'll also share it on the community wall. So if you'd like to join, just click the link and join the community. We've also shared all the download links for Infinity Pay that is on Google Play, on Huawei, and in the Apple Store. So if you'd like to download Infinity Pay, please download. I also still remind, as Charmaine said, we have something for the first 3 who download. We'd like to also meet you and see what business you're doing and where you're at. So thank you so much, everyone. Karibuni sana, and please, we look forward to our next session. So keep a lookout on what we have coming out next with Dr. Regina.